success looks like moving towards my fear, how can I not be fearful today? How can I not do that, right?
Welcome to our podcast, Teaching and Leading with Dr. Amy and Dr. Joy. I am Dr. Amy Viaclia, Director of Educator Preparation.
And I am Dr. Joy Patterson, Chief Diversity Officer. Our podcast addresses issues through the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion, along with solutions for us to grow as educators.
So join us on our journey to become better teachers and leaders. So let's get into it.
Hello, Dr. Joy.
Hello, Dr. Amy.
Wow, we are live and broadcasting from our very own Governor State University's podcast booth for our Radio Jaguar.
Absolutely. Go Gov State. This is exciting, and it's super exciting that we have our first guest in the radio room, right? Mr. Jahmal Cole.
Jahmal Cole came to us today to speak for our Martin Luther King Jr. breakfast, a fantastic event. We had music from Crete-Monee Jazz Band, speakers. Jahmal Cole really led us with some inspiration and some stories, and we want to go further with that today, our one-on-one time with him.
Yes, absolutely.
Jahmal Cole is a champion of social justice. His mission is to build a more interconnected Chicago on the pillars of service and education. As the founder and CEO of the city's fastest-growing social impact organization, My Block, My Hood, My City, Jahmal Cole is the creator of an exposure-based education program for teens and a network of volunteer initiatives that serve Chicago communities year-round. Traveling, youth mentorship, and community organizing are the subjects of Jahmal's highly acclaimed books and speeches. He has spoken to audiences ranging from high school students to the mayor of Chicago. In 2022, Jahmal Cole received an honorary doctorate degree in humanities and philanthropy from Adler University. Congratulations, Dr. Cole.
Thank you.
And was voted Best Activist by the Chicago Reader. Jahmal was named one of the 25 most powerful Chicagoans by Crain's magazine. He has also been awarded the 2020 American Red Cross Community Impact Hero Award. In 2019, Jahmal Cole was named to Crain's 40 Under 40. He's also the recipient of the 2019 Champion of Freedom Award, the 2018 Chicago Defender Men of Excellence honoree, and the 2018 Chicago City Council Resolution Award. In 2018, he was also named one of the 20 most inspiring Chicagoans by Streetwise magazine and a Chicagoan of the Year by Chicago Magazine. He was recently voted 2021 Activist of the Year by Chicago Magazine. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me here today. It's a beautiful campus.
Thank you. It is such a pleasure. So before we really get into it, and we have a lot of questions for you. Actually, we want you to do most of the talking, but we have some questions for you. I want our audience to get to know you better.
Okay.
So tell us about your critical journey that led you on this pathway to where you are now in doing the activism work that you're doing.
Yeah. My dad was playing Malcolm X and Stokely Carmichael. I watched the movie Malcolm X so many times. I thought Denzel Washington was Malcolm X growing up. Like everybody was watching Aladdin and I was watching Malcolm X. My dad would play Malcolm's speeches in the car at the basketball games. Everybody's playing music. My dad's playing Malcolm X, So everybody teased me and called me Booker T. Washington and all that kind of stuff. He made me wear suits to school every day. But I wanted to be like Malcolm. I wanted to be like Martin. I wanted people to think I was smart. I wanted the crowd to cheer for me. I wanted to speak in front of the currency exchange in the beauty supply store and get the oohs and ahs and teach people. So I just tried to, with that as my backdrop, the beauty supply store is my backdrop. I just went in and started learning about my community and figuring out how I could teach people. If the Red Line was closing down for a year, I want to know, was that a inconvenience to the people? If charter schools are moving in, is that an inconvenience? How do you feel about that versus traditional public schools? What's going on in the community? How can I learn and teach people? And I just went for gusto, just going to the library every month and begging the branch manager to let me use the community room, and flyer all month. Nobody would show up, and he'd feel bad and send his staff in there to listen to me speak. I'd do it again the next month, and 2 people would show up. I'd appreciate them. That turned into 4. I appreciated it. It turned into 8. I just started that way, really from the mud.
Earlier this week, Dr. Amy and we had an opportunity to interview Dr. Crystal Harris, and our conversation was on racial healing, in celebration of the National Day of Racial Healing. And she also talked about her childhood and her parents and how that was the start of her activism. So it's just, I love how it just all comes together. It's part of who you are. Like, you didn't have a choice.
No. My mom was a Jehovah's Witness. She raised us. We went to the hall 3 times a week. And so Sundays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, I'd have to put up, and then Saturdays going out and knocking on folks' doors. I didn't know I was learning to be a community organizer. I hated going to church on Sundays because I wanted to watch football with my dad, but my dad insisted that I go because he said, I don't want you to be afraid to talk to white people, so you got to go to the church. And so I had to go 4 times a week with my mom, and so that's kind of, my mom, my dad takes a lot of credit, but my mom really spent the 10,000 hours with me reading the Bible, learning how to memorize presentations and giving hand gestures. So I spent a lot of time doing that.
Let's talk more about your inspiration.
Sure.
You write that you didn't ask for the role of community activist, but it's one you lead with love.
Yeah.
You truly do. What or who would you say is your biggest inspiration?
I would say, it sounds cliche, but Barack Obama probably, because when I was, I don't know how, 24, and I saw him at the Bud Billiken parade, I felt like that's going to be a president. Like, wow, like who is that? He wasn't even a senator. He was running against Alan Keyes, but he was confident. He was married. He was on the back of a Benz waving to the people in the crowd. I was like, I want to be like that. Like, who is that? And then I read his book. And I was like, wow, he's teaching the fundamentals to community organizing. Like, and he left a playbook on how he did it. What? I'm going to Altgeld Gardens where he started. So I just followed everything he did. Like, okay. And I read about his elections and how, his wife was, Michelle was like, man, you about to spend all our kids' college money if you've been losing. And he was like, I let her take comfort in the fact that I was going to lose. I was like, what? That's brilliant. And so when my wife was always like, well, you spending too much money. I'm like, I've read the playbook on this before, So Obama to me is, I'm very rarely am I super nervous. When I got to meet him, I think what I said to him was like, you've been to so many countries. And he was just like, that's all that came out.
That's the question you thought of.
Yeah, I don't know. I was like, you've been to all these countries. And he was like, what? Yeah. And so, I got to go to a basketball game with him one time, and I thought that was just phenomenal. So
that's great.
Wow.
So we introduced you earlier, as being a catalyst for change. And that doesn't come easy. It doesn't come without a lot of drama, right? So what actions have you taken, if you could think, that you've gotten the most pushback on, number one? And also, what do you say to your haters? And then I kind of want you to expound on that, too, because we're not just talking about normal, everyday haters. You've had some extreme haters. So you've been able to relate to Dr. King. You've been able to relate to Malcolm X.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Well, I try not to respond with my ego now because, I'm 40. And so I'm trying to, be more mature. And I recognize I got kids and I don't want them to, to make the same mistakes I did. Some activists come up to me and they say, well, you're like Dr. King. You're not like Malcolm. We're like Malcolm. Like, we're in the front lines. Like, you're like Dr. King. I'm like, I want to be Malcolm. Like, what do you mean? Like, why do I got to be Dr. King? Like, And but I realize there's a lot of different types of activists, and we all have our different roles and tactics on how we tackle issues. Some activists, their specialty is making sure causes aren't forgotten or being behind ambulances. Some activists like me have nonprofit programs where we take teenagers on field trips. All of that is good for Chicago because it puts pressure on institutions to address issues we care about. So I've learned to just not react and think about it. But yeah, I again, and also I stand guard at the door of my thoughts and I watch what I take in. But I can be petty sometimes, and I will go to Instagram, and if somebody says something negative about me, I'm sensitive. You know, if you spend all month working on a speech, and then you get 50,000 views, and somebody comments negatively, you know, that's it's not the best. And so sometimes I'm petty, and I will go look into who that person is. But, anyways, I'm growing, and I'm evolving. So,
Well, hopefully we all are.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Martin Luther King Jr. said, "If you want to change the world, pick up a pen and write." You have done just that. Could you share a little about what writing has done for you and for your community? What impact do you hope your writing will have?
Yeah, I try to write a book a year. You know, I grew up listening to Nas and him being vulnerable. And, you know, I've written 7 so far. Yeah, and so I writing is the way I learn. Like being creative, it takes a brave person to be creative, and I learn best by creating. And so I try to plagiarize life. Like that's my style of writing. Like if I'm on the red line and here's how it smells, or here's how it sounds when the chains are popping, or it's really just I reflect after the day on what I did and turn those things. And then my things that I try to do, like currency exchange campaign, where I'll stand in front of the currency exchange and sign 250 people up for bank accounts instead of cashing their check at the currency exchange. I will. I find it fascinating when I start doing research that over the course of a lifetime, people spend $40,000 in fees at the currency exchange, and they charge 3% on your $100, but they have bulletproof glass windows up. To me, I'm like, you're robbing us, but you have the bulletproof glass windows up. You know what I mean? So I write about stuff like that because it's I plagiarize everything that happens in my life. Yeah.
What impact have you already seen from the writing that you've done?
Well, it encourages my daughters to write. My daughter wants to write horror movies. I have no clue why. I'm scared of watching scary movies. I have to watch them with her in the daytime now, but she wants to write, and I don't know why she wants to do that. But anyways, I think that also, if you have a book, you don't need a resume. Like, you know, like I've never had to have a resume for a job. When I come in, I just bring the book, and that says everything you need to say. Like, hey, this is what I've done, and people.
Or you can bring your daughter.
Yeah, exactly. She'd get the job, and I wouldn't for sure. She'd get it. Like, yeah. Yeah.
This week, first of all, Amy, we're behind in our writing.
Yes.
that is amazing.
You have
work.
Inspired me.
1,000 words a day. 1,000 a day. You got it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And so you're teaching your daughter. You're modeling for your daughter, just like your parents did for you.
Mm-hmm.
This week, we've learned several things about racial trauma and the healing process. One, starting with research and history. The next step was connection, making connections, and you're out there making these connections all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The third thing was healing, and that takes us working together with a diverse group. And then that fourth thing is taking action, which you are doing. You're taking a lot of action.
Mm-hmm.
So what's something, so this is advice to us. If you could give us advice at Governor State University, this is our hood, right? And we have a whole community around us. And Dr. Amy and I in particular, we do a lot with Title I schools in our area. So we're constantly reaching out and we have programs. What is something that you think that we could do as a community where we take action?
Yeah, leadership to me is taking action. It's not really what you say, it's taking action. And I think that allowing students from under-resourced communities to experience your campus would be a great way to take action.
And I see you understood what Title I, and I should have explained
No, I got
what
you.
Title I
got
schools were, but
Yep, understood.
these are students who at least have 40% or more on free reduced lunch. So we're talking about schools that have a high poverty population.
Yeah.
So thank you. But you jumped in. You
Yeah.
knew exactly.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't even know a food stamp, wasn't real money until I put one in a pop machine and it broke. So that's how I found out I was on welfare growing up. But I loved free lunches. But I say that to say, yeah, thank God that you guys are doing that work. That's leadership, because a lot of kids, they don't know it's possible until they get on the campus and see it. Like, man, like you guys have a art garden outside. That blows people's mind. You know what I mean? Like, wow, some who created that? Who were they? Were they rich? How did they believe in themselves and their ideas? Like, they made it happen, right? And so you guys exposing kids to your campus, now it's possible for them. And exposure is key. So that's one of the ways. Also, allowing speakers like myself to come to campus and arouse enthusiasm or inspire hope. I think that is a really good way to get people together. And people want to work at places that are socially engaged. So I think that's how you can keep people. So y'all are leaders in that regard. So.
I get pulled into the news vortex. We know it can be really disturbing. It's really heartbreaking and hard, nationally, locally, globally. But I love what you said, stand guard at the door of your thoughts. What are ways you keep positive energy while still staying informed about what is going on in the world and the community? What advice do you have for us who get sucked in and need to stay afloat?
I try to listen to my wife more. because I feel like she is
Smart man.
She is. I'm
so,
learning.
too,
I'm
yeah.
learning because she keeps me grounded. She always she wants to go on. At the end of the month, she wants to go to California. I'm like, no, I don't want to go. But I realize that life happens in between your plans. So I can have all these speeches planned. I can have all this activism planned. But she's like, let's go to Atlanta or let's go to Cali or let's do something. And I'm just starting to to trust her, her judgment and all that stuff. So also I spend time with my kids. They don't care nothing about, I'm dad, and they're gonna try to pull at my beard or pull up my hair. My daughters think my hair is ugly. Like, cut your hair, go back to what you were doing before. And I only started growing it because my son, I wanted to keep him healthy for 18 years. That's why I started growing it. But anyways, yeah. So I listen to my wife. I try to stand on, I try to, if I say I'm gonna do something, I try to do it. Anytime that I get weary, I volunteer. I think that is the key to getting back into the work. Once you get around, you keep your ear to the streets, you go out there, that rekindles the spirit of community organizing for me.
You shared some stories during your talk today, and that's about being part of the community, hearing the narratives. You have your own narrative, your own stories. Could you share some of the stories that keep you grounded, that keep you volunteering, that keep you working as a mentor?
Yeah, of course. I was talking earlier about the kids that I asked, Marquell. I asked him, I said, hey, what'd you do this weekend? He said, I had a great weekend, Jahmal. I ate some good food. I got to travel a little bit. I got to dance. I was like, well, that's awesome. Now, would y'all have a family reunion? He's like, oh, no, I just went to Leak and Sons on 79th. This is the best funeral I've ever been to. The best funeral he ever been to. This kid was in 9th grade, and he had been to 15 funerals. I went to, in Atlanta, my wife's from Atlanta, so recently I'm working on another book called It's Not Regular Too, and so I'm doing research. And I passed by a gun store in Atlanta, and they had a machine gun with a silencer in the window. And so I stopped by to talk to the owner, what's the purpose of a machine gun with a silencer? There's not a lot of deer out here with a, bulletproof vest. Why do you got a machine? He's like, well, first of all, it's not called a silencer. This is in the movies. It's called an air compressor. And the reason why I have it is easy. It's for home defense. I was like, home defense? He's like, yeah, this gun is so loud that if you were to shoot it off in your house, you would hurt your kids and your wife's eardrums. So you want to get the bad guys, right? You don't want to hurt I was like, oh, that's not regular. So anyway, that kind of stuff to me is blows my mind. And those stories irk me to the point where I want to wake people up by writing or speaking or challenging them. And that's why that inspires me to do it.
So I want to go back to connections.
Sure.
Because I actually saw this today.
Okay.
And a couple of times in your story, you talked about the young man and him, what we would have considered of maybe it was a family reunion or something, was a funeral to him. But you make that connection and you don't judge. And I think that's what pulls us apart is that we think we can't relate. And although that may not be your experience, but being able to draw that person in and have a connection is important. I also saw you with those high school students today.
Yeah.
And I saw fire.
Yeah.
I saw you really in your element as a mentor and connecting with them. I want to know from you, because in your organization, and we're sporting our hoodies. I wish you all could see them. My block, my hood, my city. And I was born and raised in Chicago, in Inglewood.
Okay, cool.
I purchased my first home as an adult in Ashburn community, so I'm a proud Chicagoan. So I know you have a wonderful strategic plan for this organization because we're seeing some of the fruits of your labor. What does success look like to you?
Success looks like being alive. Success looks like every day is a battle between inclination and obligation. I'm inclined to do a lot of things, but I'm obligated to be a father, to be a husband. Success looks like making the right decisions every day for me. Success looks like moving towards my fear. How can I not be fearful today? How can I not do that, right? How can I, that's success. My goal is to be a mayor. So that's my goal. It's always been like something I want to try to do. I want to take a stand with integrity for what I believe in. But every time I have a goal, God has a way of having his own plans for me. So I want to be a better listener. I think that'd be a success for me. I want to be fearless. I think that would be success for me, and be alive, man. Because I don't want to. I want to speak life into myself and others. So.
Well, you're here for a reason. Yeah. I know you've been targeted 3 times because of the work that you're doing, and to survive those 3 horrific incidents. You're here for a reason, so I hope you know that.
Yes, I received that. I appreciate that. I believe that. Because that's traumatizing in itself. That's really traumatizing. It's still with me. I still have PTSD today. I was shoveling snow on 71st in Merrill the other day, and someone drove by, and I was like, man, I still have this PTSD thing. And my wife sees it when I go to Atlanta or I leave Chicago. She's like, man, you're calmer out here. I don't realize that there's, you almost just have to have your guards up all the time, because you don't want, I got security now. You know what it's like to have security? It's weird.
It is weird.
Super weird. And, but anyways, that's what we got to do. So, yeah.
We started this podcast in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic, and we didn't know what we were about to embark on. Yeah. I feel like in many ways we started walking into our fear and talking about some tough topics, tough issues, and always seemed to come through no matter what we were talking about. It was teaching, it was learning, it was leading, but it always had a thread of equity and diversity and inclusion. And I'm wondering what you might offer to us is a step for us to help us walk into our fear, to guide us. What can we do on the podcast to have a greater impact, a greater positive impact?
Yeah, well, I think that you guys starting a podcast around that time is very, it's awesome. And it's also, I want to say it's striking because, a lot of companies in that time started reaching out to nonprofit organizations and you didn't know if they cared about justice being denied or they cared about business being interrupted. So people in 2020 around George Floyd, they were empathetic. And then 2021, I felt like they were compassionate. 2022, I felt like they were showing up. I guess that's compassionate too. But in 2023, there's like a diversity, equity, inclusion fatigue. Like people are like, I'm not going to support the same organizations. So I would say that it's awesome that you guys are consistently still going. I would use just that, like you use audio. I would use images as well to people that you bring into your podcast. I think that'd be, just seeing y'all is amazing. And wow. Like I think just seeing a picture of that. I don't know if you guys are already doing that, but I'm saying that I would use that imagery. I would also just find like whoever has a lot of followers on Instagram, and I would find somebody with a big followership. It could be a comedian from Chicago. It could be like corporate. I don't know if you know who he is, but he has 1 million followers and he makes videos off his iPhone. Bring him here and talk to him. How did you build this? How do you make these TV shows with your iPhone? Bring him in this campus and talk to him. I think students are going to want to know that. It's going to blow their mind to see how he's doing it. And I think that will, I don't know. That's
you're pretty mind-blowing too.
Well,
and I just want to remind our
you.
audience that you're listening to Teaching and Leading with Dr. Amy and Dr. Joy. And today we have the incredible Mr. Jahmal Cole, the CEO and founder of My Block, My Hood, My City. And we're here this week on Martin Luther King Jr. week, observing all the things that he's done. We've had a remarkable week, and today is like no other. Mr. Cole is spreading his love. He's sharing his views and his values, his perspective with our faculty, staff, students, and our partnering school, Crete Moni High School.
Awesome.
So we just really, really appreciate you being here. And you just talked about, Dr. Amy, you could do this, you could do that, you could do this, but we could do you. So we're doing that.
And y'all are doing it well. This is
we're
more than
doing
expected.
you. So we have won silver awards,
Wow.
So we have
Wow.
about 100, we'll be near 150 soon, published podcasts, and now we're doing radio, so we're happy. We're evolving. And
wow.
anytime we want to give up, because I'm sure you've had time, this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
And we don't get paid for this,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's a lot of work. And anytime we feel like giving up, we meet someone like you.
Yeah.
And so this happens to us on a weekly basis. We meet someone like
That's
you,
dope.
and then we say, we can't stop.
Yeah.
There's so much
Wow.
to offer the community, right? There's
Yeah.
so much for us to learn. There's so many ways for us to connect. And we just want to be part of what you're part of just building community.
Yeah.
Having a more inclusive, equitable community. So we
Gracias.
really respect the work that you're doing. We're ecstatic that you took the time to be with us today.
Thank you.
I'm curious about some of the fire that was happening with the Crete Moni High School students.
Oh, yeah. It was
Yeah.
fire.
Yeah. I just sharing my story. I want to express more so than
Yes.
I was just trying to express myself, right? And so I wanted them to feel that passion, because that's really what separates you. And just
So it is a lesson for us to learn, because I saw that connection, and you don't want to be so far removed where you can't relate to them.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
another thing we started talking about as of last week, right? We don't want to be removed from students. We have to be able to connect to them. We have to even be able to see their pain
Yeah.
and respond to that.
Yeah.
And not shy away from it. So
Yeah.
I saw all of that connection going on. But
Yeah.
it's that connection, especially when we have freshman students here. And it's hard retaining freshman college students, right? You know that, and many of them do not make it to their sophomore year.
Yeah.
And I think having that ability to connect better.
Yeah. I try to lead into storytelling. I think the storytelling element is like, I tell myself, Jahmal, you're a great storyteller every day. And I try to teach through storytelling. That's kind of my, what I learned from like Nas. But as far as like expressing myself, I I just want to be vulnerable. And if I'm vulnerable, I think that's the bridge, like to connecting with people. So that's what I was trying to do today, is like make sure when you say it, you know, people remember like 1% of your speech, but they'll walk away feeling like, oh man, I'm going to the league, man, I'm going to the league, and they don't remember that, you know. And so I just want to, if they remember just that, then I think I did my job. So.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
I know. I like what you're saying about vulnerability.
Yeah.
We shy away from that,
Yeah.
but that is the biggest piece of connection that we can offer.
Mm.
So before we close, I'd like to know, our listeners would like to know, what initiatives you have going on right now? What are some upcoming events that you can share that we can maybe get involved in?
Yeah, so we have our hoodie ball coming up on February 17th, and so it's our annual fundraiser at the top of the Hancock. It's February 17th. Definitely come, wear whatever hoodie means something to you. It could be your favorite sports team, a fraternity, a sorority. We don't want the Green Bay Packers hoodies in there, but people, express yourself whatever your hoodie. I wore a hoodie that said God did last year, and we have the hoodie awards, whoever has the best hoodie. We have a golden hoodie award to an activist we give out. But we got 500 people wearing different hoodies. It's called a hoodie ball, like a sneaker ball, but a hoodie ball, February 17th. Go to our website, formyblog.org, for more information on that. And also, you know, we have picket sign and activism workshops. We'd love to come to high schools and colleges to get people involved in making and being a part of our march coming up, the March on Madison. So express yourself with the picket sign. It could say, I am a man. It could say, Jim Crow must go. It could say, equality for all. But just make sure you're committed to the words. We're fighting for humanity. We're not fighting for Instagram, but we want to teach you how to make picket signs and fight for what's right. And so, yeah, bring us to a school near you. Just go to our website, formyblog.org, and sign your school up for picket sign and activism workshops.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Teaching and Leading with Dr. Amy and Dr. Joy. Visit our website at govst.edu/teaching and leading podcast to see the show notes from this episode.
We appreciate Governor State University's work behind the scenes to make publishing possible. Stay tuned for more episodes with Dr. Amy and Dr. Joy.